Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1057. 1057, it is Friday, February 28th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, it's another one of those busy news days. So much to cover, and so we'll try to get through it all, and we'll just have to move quickly. So let's begin right here. Well, it looks like Michael Loonberg has added top Clinton ally Capricia Marshall to his campaign. Marshall served in Bill Clinton's administration. She was special assistant to the Right Reverend Clinton when she was First Lady. She worked on the Right Reverend Clinton's Senate campaign in New York. She was also on her 2008 presidential team as a senior advisor. Of course, she has been she is also seen quite a bit in this new movie about the Right Reverend Clinton, this documentary or docu-series on the Right Reverend Clinton that's going to be showing up on Hulu. So Marshall is seen throughout in that deal. She is also considered to be in the inner circle of the Right Reverend Clinton, and that she is a not just some sort of lingering outsider or someone that comes and goes. She's a confidant, a very deep insider confidant of the Clintons, and she has been going all the way back to the early 90s. She carries a lot of power and a lot of weight within the Democratic Party inside Washington, D.C. She is a tremendous influence within the DCC, the DCCC, and of course in any Democratic political circles, particularly revolving around elections. She's considered to be quite the strategist and all those sorts of things. So she's definitely a high roller in the world of Democratic Party politics, and she comes out of the very inner core of the Clinton political cabal, I guess you would say, more than anything else. So this, of course, again, will raise questions about whether or not there is some sort of a game going on with the Right Reverend Clinton and Michael Loonberg. Now, it's really hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say, from my perspective. I'm not on the inside enough to know that. But as you know, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I don't believe that Loonberg really wants to be the president. I think he wants to be the kingmaker. He doesn't have to be the president. If he can be the guy that is the kingmaker, he gets all the benefits of being, connected to the most powerful person on the planet, the President of the United States. But he doesn't have to put up with the bullshit that goes along with it. So I think he may see himself as a kingmaker. But I also know the Clintons very well. And the Clintons are probably the best I've ever seen at manipulating people to get people to do things that benefit them ultimately in the end, while making people believe along the way that they're somehow benefiting themselves. The Clintons do nothing to benefit anyone but themselves. Now, Loonberg is arrogant enough, egotistical enough to get sucked into the Clintons' trap. So I will continue to say that I believe this is a plot by the Right Reverend Clinton to have her name brought forward at a brokered convention. And that Loonberg will be so destroyed. I mean, I think he'll be there at the end. I really do. He's got the money. So I think he'll be there at the end, and I think Commie Bernie will be there at the end. But I believe that they will beat each other to death in the process, and by the time they get to the convention 4.5 months from now, that they'll both be so beaten, bloody, and battered that neither of them will be able to be standing. I believe they'll both be pretty much on the mat, taking the 10 count. So they'll have to bring forth someone who has not been beaten up, someone that they think can bring the party together, someone who's got name recognition, someone who has organization already in place in all 50 states, someone who can raise a hell of a lot of money, and that person, I can think of no one else but the Right Reverend Clinton. And I'll continue to believe that until I have evidence to prove otherwise. Now, whether or not Bloomberg is part of a plot with Hillary, or whether he is being manipulated by the Clintons, only someone on the very inside, like inside Bloomberg's head, would actually know that. I don't know. And I don't think it really matters, does it? I mean, I don't think it really matters. All that matters is the end result. And the end result is that I believe that the Right Reverend Clinton is going to be brought forward on a ballot for nomination at a brokered convention. That's what I believe. And Bloomberg will have benefited tremendously from that. So I would say we just have to keep watching, and we'll all learn that together, I assume. But obviously there's something going on here. But you have to ask yourself, why is such a Clinton loyalist jumping on the Bloomberg train? I mean, the Bloomberg and the Right Reverend Clinton are not that close on their politics. The Right Reverend Clinton is pretty much of a neoliberal, and you could even say a neocon. Loonberg is not really like that, you know. He's a social engineer and a far leftist, and he's too far to the left to get elected in this country as well. So anyway, I think we'll just have to wait and see. But there's the news. Another high-level Clinton insider now inside the Bloomberg team. We'll see how that plays out for Mr. Loonberg. Ultimately, I don't see how he loses in the deal. I think he's there to be the kingmaker. We'll wait and see how that ends up. I don't have very much time, but I did want to respond to a question in the comments section by T.W. Wintex regarding Loonberg and this comment he made in the debate in South Carolina about the fact that he bought, well, he caught himself before he could get the word out, bought, and ended up saying got, those 21 members of Congress elected. And so T.W. Wintex was asking the questions, basically, am I aware that Loonberg made this gaffe about buying Congress or buying those 21 seats, and what can be done about it? Well, I mean, again, this is something that you could spend hours and hours talking about. I don't have that much time, so I'll give you the short answer. Well, what can be done? Well, I mean, the Supreme Court has ruled that speech is money. Money is speech. They're one and the same. So that's an established fact, and until a Supreme Court rules differently, that's the law of the land. Money is speech, okay? So we have to live with that, like it or not. I think there's arguments for and against. But anyway, the next question to ask is, did Loonberg violate any campaign finance law in the way that he did this? And of course, if he violated any campaign finance law, then yes, there could be some issue, some accountability. But as we know from people who do this kind of stuff, it happens in every election. They violate campaign finance law, but they don't go back and overturn election results as a result. The individual or individuals involved will get some sort of a hand slap and a fine, maybe some of the time. So I don't expect that there'll be any repercussions from that. If that's what T.W. Wintex, if that's what you're asking me, do I think there'll be any repercussions of what Bloomberg said? Well, not legally, I don't. But certainly a lot of people saw that comment, and I'm sure it perked a lot of people's ears up. I think that the corrective measure is that let's look at what really happened here. Yes, Loonberg put up a lot of money, and he says he's willing to put up $2 or $3 billion to buy the Democratic nomination and probably even the White House. But again, I don't think it's going to work. And those 21 Democrats, they didn't win those seats just because of Loonberg's money. They all went out and campaigned as if they were conservatives. I mean, they literally went out and campaigned using all Republican talking points. Many of them said, oh, we're not going to Washington to impeach Trump. We're not going there to do that. We're going to work with the president. We want to do good things for the country. Oh, we support the Second Amendment. Oh, we support the First Amendment. They ran as a bunch of, for lack of a better term, blue dog Democrats or conservative Democrats or extremely moderate Democrats at the very least. That's what they all ran on. Now, the payback comes this November when their opponent, the Republican opponent, points out everything that they said 2 years prior. They went to Washington and did just the opposite. So I think many, if not most all of these candidates will be knocked out, and Republicans will take those seats back. So I believe that is the recourse that is likely to happen. So to some degree, justice will be served. Those individuals who lied about what they believed and what they were going to do are going to lose their seats. They're going to be voted out. So, yeah, they got a 2-year run, but that's all they're going to get. And most, if not all, those seats will go back to being Republican-held seats, and we will take back the Congress. That's what should happen, and I believe will happen. The larger issue here that I look at is that it always comes down to the people. The people have to be smart enough in this country that no amount of money can buy your thinking or your beliefs or your principles. For instance, if Bloomberg told some lobbyist, gave him $1 million to try to convince me to turn my opinions and change the way I think or the way I vote, to get me to vote against Trump and to vote for a Democrat, or to vote against supporting the Second Amendment, or to vote against anything that I believe in, no matter how many billions of dollars Bloomberg spent, they would not be able to get me to change my views. What if Bloomberg just walked up and said, "Hey, Mike, I'll give you $1 million to change your opinion"? Well, I'd probably have to sleep on that. Who wouldn't? Can people be bought? Yes, everyone can probably be bought. Everyone probably has a price. I would like to think, like all of you, that I can't be bought. Can we all be bought? Probably. But ultimately, I think that the thing that the big picture, I look at the big picture here. The thing that concerns me most is what is happening in the education system over the past 3, 4, 5 decades, that the communist, socialist, whatever you want to call it, indoctrination, that's really the problem. The money shouldn't matter. If people are properly educated, then all of the money that's used to persuade them into thinking certain ways should not have that much effect. But the problem is what's happening in academia, what's being taught to young people, all these leftist views. That's where I think the fight is. It is in reforming our high schools, colleges, our schools in general, colleges and universities. And I think that there's a lot of left-wing communist socialist propaganda that's been going on for a very long time. I think that's what we need to focus on, because ultimately we need to be smart enough people in the country that we can't be persuaded, no matter how many billions of dollars in ads someone like Loonberg runs. We should be able to realize it should not be able to persuade us. So I think that the real fight is in the educational systems, colleges and universities, not with the laws about campaign finance. Because quite honestly, I don't see the Supreme Court overturning it. And on the other hand, wealthy Republicans are not, it's not like the wealthy Republicans are not able to create these big PACs, raise lots of money, and try to do the same thing. And as far as Loonberg's concerned, yeah, he's spent a lot of money buying seats. He spends a lot of money on trying to push for measures to overturn the Second Amendment, all these things. But you also have Soros. Soros spends a tremendous amount of money getting prosecutors, corrupt prosecutors, left-wing prosecutors elected, getting certain ballot issues passed. We have the Right Reverend Clinton and her group. She's connected to 6 large organizations that raise a ton of money that, again, try to get leftist and state Senate seats, state House seats, prosecutors, judges, ballot issues. So there's a lot of money trying to buy a lot of persuasion. And again, I think that the solution to the problem is getting to the nut of the problem, is getting people properly educated so that these mass campaigns of propaganda do not influence or persuade people because they're too smart to take the bait. That, I think, is where the solution is until something changes on the court ruling. There you go, TW Wintex. I hope that's satisfies you to some degree. Okay. Boom. Boom. It looks like former Obama advisor Anton Gunn has gone on MSNBC and told the panel on MSNBC the following, quote, listen carefully. You've heard me say this quite a few times in the last couple of weeks. Quote, this is what people need to remember. The Demo-Commie Party decides its nominee. The public doesn't really decide the nominee. The public gets to vote for President of the United States, but people who are active in the party, they decide the nominee. Superdelegates are very influential in the party. There you go. Same thing I've been saying for weeks and weeks. And we know this from the court case that happened down in Florida after the 2016 elections. The lawyer for the Democratic National Committee went into court and said, all these primaries and caucuses and votes and campaigns, this is all just window dressing. This is just to, build some excitement and blah, 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 blah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're a private club and we'll nominate who the hell we want, regardless of what the voters want. If we don't like who the voters pick, we'll override them. And if we want to do it in such a way that we cheat and do other things, backhanded things, that's all right. We're a private club. It's better to do it that way than just to come out and say, yeah, we know all you guys want this guy, but we don't like him, so screw him. We're going to nominate this person. That will not go over too well. So they use covert ways of doing it and just different ways of getting to the same result, which is making sure that the voters in the Democratic Party, which is obviously not such a Democratic Party after all, it's not a Democratic Party, it's a dictatorship run by the oligarchs that run the DNC. They will decide who the nominee is, and that's why I say that Bernie Sanders is not going to be the nominee. And because when I think about this, the more I think about it, I have to ask myself, ultimately, which is the most damaging? Is it the most damaging to have Bernie at the top of the ticket being the nominee for the Democrats, or is it less damaging to cheat Bernie, even if they have to do it openly, and piss off all the Bernie bros? Which would do the least amount of harm? And I come back to believing that cheating Bernie and taking the nomination away from him and even pissing off a lot of Democrat voters is probably less harmful to the Democratic Party than allowing him to be the nominee. And that's why I think they'll cheat him. And they understand that the Bernie bros are going to riot. They're going to try to burn down Milwaukee. They're going to raise all kinds of hell. And we can assume, unless they have a really liberal police chief and mayor in Milwaukee, they'll be fully prepared for the Bernie bros. They'll know exactly what's coming because someone at the DNC will tell them, hey, we're getting ready to screw Bernie. You better have plenty of cops on duty. You better be ready to roll. So anyway, that's my take on that. So they're basically coming out and saying exactly what I've been saying, that the Democratic Party does not have a democratic process. It's a dictatorship. They will choose. It's a private club. They'll choose the nominee, and they ain't going to choose Bernie. Now, as I said, also as I've said on this point, Bernie knows this. Commie Bernie Sanders knows the deal. He knows they're not going to let him have the nomination. So what's he going through all this for? Money. Bernie's looking to cash out. How much do you think that they'll pay? We know he got paid off quite well to walk away in 2016 and endorse the rotten Reverend Clinton. He's already said he would, if he loses, he's going to endorse the nominee, even if it's Bloomberg. Bernie is already, the deal's cut. They're going to let Bernie go out and raise as much money as he can. He gets to keep a lot of that money. Then they're going to pay him off, and he'll go out and campaign and support the Democratic nominee. He'll just get bought off again, and he'll laugh all the way to the bank. So my message to you, Bernie supporters, stop being suckers. You're being suckers. Bernie is suckering you again. Bernie is suckering you again. He doesn't give a damn about you. He's looking for his retirement plan, and you're part of it. Wake up, Bernie fans. You're being schnookered. Well, we have the Monmouth and the Marist polls coming out yesterday showing Biden is up 20 points in South Carolina. Steyer is in third. Looks like they got Biden up 36 in first place. Sanders at 16, and you got Steyer at 15. You know, Steyer has spent $30 million there. He's spent more than anyone else there. I expect he'll have a pretty good finish. I do believe he'll place in the top three. As I said yesterday, I think 1 and 2 are going to be closer than what they're saying here. Now, Bernie got beat up pretty bad in that debate. He took a hit. He didn't look good. I thought he was off his game that night. Biden didn't necessarily have a great performance, but he's the anti-Bernie. Bloomberg's not on the ticket in South Carolina. If Bloomberg were on the ticket, we'd be looking at a different set of variables here. But I think the way things look, I continue to think that that Biden probably will pull it out in South Carolina just because of the way the debate went. But I don't think he's going to win by 20. I think Bernie will get closer than that. I think that race will be settled within 5 points. And I think that Steyer is going to do considerably better than people think as well, because he spent so much money, and there are probably going to be a lot of people in South Carolina, they're looking at Bernie and Biden, and they say, Biden's nuts. He's insane. We can't elect this guy. But Bernie's a commie. What are we going to do? And, and of course, there you got Steyer. He's running all them ads. He's putting his whole game on South Carolina. I think Steyer is going to end up being the one who bumps up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if Steyer comes in second. But I think he definitely will come in the top three. I still think it's going to be Bernie and Biden 1 and 2. I think Biden will edge out Bernie. But I think it's going to be much closer than that. I don't think Biden's going to win by 20. Well, let's see. We have the corrupt Demo-Commie ex-mayor, and I believe this is in Maryland. Yeah, Baltimore. The corrupt ex-mayor, Demo-Commie mayor, Catherine Pugh, has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for corruption, conspiracy, and tax evasion. So here we see another left-wing commie going down. A lot of left-wing commies, liberals, Democrat types, have been taken down in the past couple of weeks. Something is happening. These people used to get off the hook. They're not getting off the hook anymore. Probably has something to do with all them judges Trump's been appointing. So it looks like Catherine Pugh has been sentenced to 3 years for corruption, conspiracy, and tax evasion. Also, she has to pay fines of $411,000. Basically, what she did was she sold a bunch of books that she wrote to the state of Maryland for $500,000 was the contract. Those books were supposed to go into the schools in Maryland. But instead, a large portion of those books were then sent to a warehouse. They were not sent to the schools. They were sent to a warehouse where they could then be redistributed and double sold. And they never actually made their way to the schools. And she was aware of the entire thing. So that's why she's going to the lockup. Well, it looks like we have Bernie Bros caught on video stalking and harassing a Demo-Commie congressional candidate named Betsy Lonergan by attempting to trap her in her vehicle. And they're demanding that she debate a socialist opponent. They want her to debate the socialist. So here again we see Bernie Bros turning on the Democratic Party. The Bernie Bros are not directing their anger so much at Trump right now, or even Trump supporters, although they will if they run across any of them. But their real anger and their real target right now is the Democratic Party. And that's what the Democrats are going to have to deal with, and that's why we're all going to sit back and laugh at them over the next 4 months and throughout the convention as we watch all this happen. Ultimately, what's going to happen is that in movements like this, they will destroy themselves. Commie Bernie will kiss the ring, he'll take the money and walk away and screw his supporters. They're going to be very, very angry when they realize they've been duped. They're also going to be very, very angry at the Democratic Party. They are going to cause and incite violence, engage in property destruction, and various other things up in Milwaukee. And this is going to look very bad on TV. People are going to look at them and go, those Bernie supporters are nuts. We don't like these people very much. And ultimately, this will lead to their own destruction. So ultimately, the Bernie movement is going to be destroyed. Bernie won't be back in 4 years from now. He may not even be alive. Bernie's going to cash out and walk away a very wealthy man. And his supporters are going to get beatdowns, thrown in jail, get their asses kicked, and then they're going to be looked at by the majority of Americans as just a bunch of ne'er-do-wells. And they will ultimately get nothing for all their efforts. But like I said, beatdowns, tickets, fines, and ultimately their movement will be pretty much destroyed. The Bernie movement 2 years from now will not exist. Maybe only in small patches around the country they'll be trying to get something going, but this is pretty much going to take the wind out of their sails. They're not going to survive this because they have too many powerful forces opposed against them. That's why. Well, the New York Times has interviewed 93 superdelegates in the Democratic Party, the Demo-Commie Party, and of those 93 superdelegates, 84 say Bernie should not be the nominee. There are a total of 771 superdelegates. They're going to make sure that Bernie's not the nominee. That's just it. And we know what's going to be the consequences of that, but as I said, they know they're not going to win the White House. They know they're not going to beat Trump. They accept that already. They're looking for the person who will do the least amount of damage. Bernie at the top of the ticket will be destructive to a degree that we can't even hardly probably understand or explain right now. They understand it. So they're going to suck it up, screw Bernie. No, they're going to be defeated. No, they're going to have a big division in the party. But it's still better than if they put Bernie at the top of the ticket. It's the best of two bad options for the Demo-Commie Party. And they're going to take the best of the two bad options. And that is to keep Bernie off the ticket however they have to do it. Yeah, and as I've said before, it's just my opinion, is that Bernie is not going to have the delegates he's going to need when he shows up at the convention. You are going to get a contested convention, and that is why it is unlikely that Warren, Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Steyer, or Loonberg will drop out. Now, maybe a couple of them might drop out because they just had no money. But I think they're going to try to keep as many of these people in the game as possible to keep drawing votes from Bernie. Bloomberg himself might start financing some of these other people. Big money may come in from other places from within the DNC to keep as many people in the field as possible to keep diluting the vote to keep Bernie from getting the majority of delegates. If he gets the majority of delegates, they'll still screw him. They absolutely will. But that would make it much, much harder. What they want to do is have Bernie come in and say, well, you don't have the majority, and have a brokered convention. If he comes in with the majority, they're still going to screw him. They'll just come and say, well, look, you do have the majority, you did win the process, but we're a private club and we just don't like you. So we're not going to nominate you. Tough. And they know all hell will break loose and the whole 9 yards. They want to avoid that. And the best way to do that is to make sure that as many people as possible stay in the game till as late as possible to keep diluting that vote. I expect that that's what we're going to see. Something that you might want to check out is the most recent podcast with George Papadopoulos, and he had Lee Smith on. As you know, I'm a huge fan of Lee Smith. I think he's one of the best journalists in the country. I've got half a dozen of his books, including his most recent one. And of course, we went through a lot of that book here on my TowerGate video. So I'm just going to... I didn't really learn anything particularly new from that interview with Papadopoulos and Lee Smith, although it's definitely worth listening to. It's about an hour-long podcast. So you probably want to check it out. But there was some things that were reaffirmed, and there was maybe some new information. I don't know. But nothing I thought was really bombshell came out of it, but very good interview. Definitely worth listening to. But I'll just kind of recap a few things. I got a couple minutes here. I'll just kind of recap a couple things from that interview that we've probably talked about here. I assume they're in my timeline, but just certain things that were discussed in that interview that I thought were worth noting. So I just kind of was taking notes as I was listening. So the first thing that they talked about at the beginning was, of course, the new revelations from Lee Smith. Now, John Solomon is the one who actually got the FaceTime on TV, but it was Lee Smith who actually discovered it. So what happened was Lee Smith had these FOIA requests for a lot of emails and texts. He gets them, he gets this information, he discovers, reading through there, he's got basically the Papadopoulos 302s from the FBI, and he's also got the congressional testimony. He starts comparing the two, and he finds out in there two important things. Number one, that Papadopoulos did tell the FBI, hey, Misfit just contacted me, and he's going to be in Washington, D.C. in about 2 weeks. If you want to talk to him, that's where he's going to be. Papadopoulos also told the FBI that that Misfit told him straight up when Misfit said, hey, I heard that the Russians got Hillary's emails. And Papadopoulos was kind of curious. He's like, really? Where did you hear that? And Misfit said, from the Russians. Papadopoulos told the FBI that. Papadopoulos told the FBI that Misfit told him that he firsthand was told by Russians that they had the Right Reverend Clinton's emails. So here's two facts in point. Both of these facts in point were the FBI did not tell the FISA court in the Carter Page application. They did not, it was exculpatory evidence. They did not bring forth, and they didn't tell the truth to Congress. So the FBI lied about these two things that they knew about Papadopoulos. One of the reasons that they went after Papadopoulos is they told the judge that he wasn't truthful with them, and that's what prevented them from being able to get to Misfit. When in fact, these 302s and his testimonies to Congress prove exactly the opposite. The FBI lied. Papadopoulos did try to help them to get to Misfit, and he did tell them that he was told firsthand by Misfit himself that it was the Russians who told him that they had the Right Reverend Clinton's emails. This totally contradicts what the FBI puts in their 302s. It contradicts what they said in interviews to Congress, and it contradicts their lies to the court. So Lee Smith discovers this, and he writes on it, and then John Solomon, who also had requested in for these documents and had other documents, he went back to check Lee Smith facts, looked at it himself, and said, "Yep, absolutely, right there it is." And then he, of course, ended up going on Sean Hannity and breaking the story. But it was actually Lee Smith who got the first 302s and first tied the two together. Solomon looked at that, confirmed it, and then he came out. So whoever you want to give the credit to doesn't matter. They're both great reporters. They're both doing a great job. Solomon and Lee Smith nail it down, and there's another arrow in the quiver for Mr. Durham to nail down these corrupt FBI officials who need to be in prison sooner than later. Yeah, Papadopoulos said something pretty interesting. He said, the very first time the FBI came to his house to interview him, he said they asked him if he had heard anything about emails, the Right Reverend Clinton emails. And now Papadopoulos brings up a good point that some other people have also brought up, that at that particular time, one of the biggest stories that everybody was talking about was what happened to Hillary Clinton's emails, but they're talking about the ones that she deleted from her private server. So it's like the FBI was trying to muddy the water with Papadopoulos, knowing good and well that the talk of the town, everybody was saying, where's Hillary's emails? Who's got Hillary's emails? They were talking about the ones that she deleted. But the FBI was trying to muddy the water and trying to trap or confuse or trick Papadopoulos into getting him to talk about this, knowing good and well that they were there because of the false setup about Misfit having access to the emails which he acquired or was told by Russia that they had. So they were trying to play games with Papadopoulos and confuse the two, and this is what he says caused his initial confusion. He said he knew at that point there was something very suspicious going on. And Papadopoulos also said he became suspicious and curious why the FBI was asking about this, because he says that Misfit was the only person that had mentioned anything about Russians having the Reverend Clinton's emails. And he knew that he had not said anything to anybody. So the FBI is not only confusing the issue between stolen emails and Hillary deleting emails, they're trying to confuse the two on the Papadopoulos, but Papadopoulos is also curious as to how do they know that the Russians have the Reverend Clinton's emails. As far as I know, that story's not out there. That's what Misfit told me. How do they know what Misfit told me if I've not told anyone? And I think we all know the answer to that question. Of course, they also brought up the fact that Lee Smith brought it up that he thought it was curious how the week after Barr and Durham went to Italy, that the Durham probe entered into a criminal investigation. He thinks that they learned something in Italy that made them want to take Durham's probe into a criminal investigation. And also they came out, remember, about a week after that, the IG report comes out, and both Barr and Durham said they disagree with Horowitz's finding that it was properly predicated, beginning the Operation Crossfire Hurricane. Papadopoulos also reminds us that Durham did personally interview Alexander Downer. We have Lee Smith saying he believes that the criminals will be held accountable. We also learned from Papadopoulos that the FBI threatened him, and they said that if he and his wife kept talking, going out on news shows and talking, that they would withdraw his guilty plea, and they specifically told him not to talk about Halper. Of course, Halper had already been outed at that time. And of course, he talked also about the fact that the FBI agents, Papadopoulos talked about the fact that they wanted him to wear the wire, and that he didn't want to wear the wire, and he ended up not wearing the wire. But an FBI agent named FBI agent Heidi, said that none of this would have happened to you if you'd have worn the wire. And the people who were pressuring him was Andrew Goldstein, Aaron Zielinski, and Jenny Rhee. There you go. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.